It was the most painful thing, but I couldn't scream. Hi, I am Sally Ann Upton, and bin night with Matty and Tack is binalicious. It is, 'cause you get to know all of the crap.
G'day.
G'day.
And welcome to Bin Night with Tack and Matty. I'm Tic-Tac-Toe and here's Matt the Bimbo. And we're...
There you go. He told me that he had an opening prepared and that was it.
Yeah, it's pretty good, wasn't it? You weren't expecting that.
Very good. You sound a little nasally there, Tack. Are you crook?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in last week's podcast if you had listened to it, Matt. But
I wasn't there.
No, a bit sick. Been thanks to Ari going to daycare each time he goes, brings back a new one.
A new virus, that is.
Ari is such a trooper. It's very difficult to know how affected he is by things because he just doesn't really cry, except when we're trying to. Well, actually, he's better now. I keep saying this, but I keep saying that, except when you try to get him to sleep. But no, he's pretty good at that now. And, but generally, if you just, he very rarely cries.
How do you get him to sleep?
What's the process?
Is this a laborious?
No, we
process?
put him into his sleep suit, read him a couple of books, turn off the light, rock him a little bit, and then put him in the cot. And let's say 3 out of 5 times he will just sort of go off to sleep, or he'll keep himself up for a little bit, but he'll just sort of be, I guess, playing by himself in the cot, and then he'll go off to sleep. And 2 out of 5 times he'll throw his dummy out of the cot, and we've got to go in and give it back to him, and then put him down. But usually we only have to do that maybe once or twice. Rarely it'll be more than that. Which is good compared to what it used to be, which was he just wouldn't even go in the cot. He's been getting these sicknesses from daycare, and they went through me and Amy, and it was brutal. And we're on antibiotics now. But he had this sickness, but also had an ear infection one ear, which then spread to the other ear. But you kind of wouldn't have known, like if he had a babysitter or whatever, they wouldn't have known that he would be in a decent amount of pain and discomfort and that kind of stuff because he's still
his cues, but they don't because
he just doesn't cry and act upset. He's a little bit more irritable, but someone else wouldn't know that he's even irritable because he doesn't make things a big deal. So. He's great, but that's why I sound a bit nasally. So thanks for pointing that out, Matt. I'm not insecure about it at all on an audio-based platform.
No,
or mostly
audio-based. Little hot tip, little insider info for you. Our kids didn't go to childcare, and they did get just as sick. So I wouldn't be blaming the childcare. I think it just happens.
That's because you're a dirty mother.
Yeah. Well, if the kids want to snack on a bit of chicken poop, that's fine. That's fine by me. I'm sure there's something in there. No, our first did that. We weren't watching and he picked up some chicken poop and ended up with salmonella poisoning. And then I was changing his nappy. I must have had something happen and somehow I got it. And then I had salmonella poisoning as well.
You ate his poop. He ate chicken poop and you ate his poop. That's a smart idea, Matthew.
Yep.
God.
Yep. We don't believe in sanitizer over here.
You have to not let them eat bugs like slugs and stuff because
I'm so glad you said that because if you didn't tell me that, geez, I would have been giving them up on a plate for them.
No, but if they've got the capacity to get the chicken poop into their mouths, they could pick up a slug and do the same, right? But this is more a serious thing in that a guy from my school is a couple of years below me. He's passed away now. And it was a relatively famous case. He was, he was in the top sporting teams at school and that kind of stuff. But he was at a party with friends and a couple of guys from my grade were there. And they all, I guess like a bet or a dare, ate a slug each. And his had a parasite in it, went into his brain, and I don't even know how you describe his condition, but he was basically in a coma and stuff for a while and ended up in a wheelchair without being able to move his limbs, and his mental capacity was greatly reduced, and so there's some stuff out there you do have to be weary of.
I think most of the
because if
stuff out there
happens.
is. I just took a picture of a mushroom in the garden the other day, and it said this is deadly. It's like, okay, great, and the kids were just picking them out. You got to be careful of
Got to be careful. Got to be
most things.
careful.
But anyway, here we are.
But more onto a more positive
Here we
note,
are.
if you had to talk about speaking of birds and the bees with little Barry about Penny yet? Is that topic come up?
No. They're doing strong. There actually has been a development. I guess there's the little Barry, my boy, has said he turned 5 the other day, and he said, "Daddy, I don't want to be friends with Penny anymore." And we said, "Why?" And he goes, "The only reasons I'm friends with her is because you became friends with her dad and you forced it on me." I'm like, wow. He's
aware of your manipulation.
He's turning into a manipulator himself. The other day we were driving, and he said there was something to do with, I don't know, he wanted something that he wasn't allowed to have. And so as a protest, he unbuckled his seatbelt. He said, "Daddy, I unbuckled my seatbelt." I said, "Mate, if I have to slam on the brakes because of an animal or a car or anything like that, you're going to go flying straight through that window. Put it back on now." And he says, "If I go through the window, you're not going to see me again." And I said, "That's right. So you better put it back on." And he goes, "Do you want to see me again?" I was like, oh my God, what have we created? He's just gone through this stage where he's realized he can, I don't know, manipulate people's feelings or something. I don't know. He's sort of figuring it out. But
what have you been teaching him,
he had the seatbelt put on very quickly. Huh? I don't know.
Have you been teaching him?
I don't know. It's probably all the Tarantino movies he watches. I got a chicken update for you as well. So we've got to go. Unfortunately, we've got a funeral. My grandfather passed away. Laurie Wilson, his name was. He's 96 years old. He had a really good run, but for that reason,
Laurie
we've got to go away
anything?
for a few days. Lawrence, yeah. So we had to go. We've got to go away, and there's a few days there where the house. We've got neighbours and stuff, but to check on all of the chickens and everything, and what are we going to do? We've got a chicken and a fish, so I bought an automatic fish feeder. We'll see how that goes. But for the chickens, we've got this coop, right? It's got an automatic door which opens at sunrise and it closes at sunset. We hope so far. And I've just bought a little spy camera to install in the corner, so I'll remotely be able to check the chickens in the coop. We'll see if there's a python in there before they go to sleep next time. We'll find that out.
Oh my God, these poor chickens.
But
who do we have on today, Maddie?
Oh my goodness, this has got to be one of my favourite actors that has graced the floors of the Neighbours Nunawading studios. She is, she's full of surprises. Like, I didn't even know that she was doing those shows and doing essentially. Oh, I'm not going to spoil it. No. Anyway, here it is, Sally Ann Upton, with a huge back catalogue of work and an incredible future ahead of her, because she's doing some big things in. I mean, you'd call them Hollywood movies now, wouldn't you? They're blockbuster movies. So she's a very special human being. She's a psychic. She's interesting. She's hilarious. She's entertaining. This is Sally Ann Upton.
So we are recording. Is that correct?
We are recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
You as a 7-year-old coming over from England to Australia as a 10-pound pom, and you first discovered you wanted to perform on the ship, right?
Well, as kids, I was 6, and we had school on the ship, and I didn't like school, because at that stage I didn't realise I had dyslexia and all that stuff. So that wasn't even
the teachers probably didn't either, right?
No, you don't. And I hated that stuff anyway. So, but there was concerts. There was concerts on ship, and I don't know how, but I was on a stool singing Michael Rowe, and all the other kids were in a V like that, and they had to row. And all I remember is sitting there on the stool and it was on the dance floor, on the ballroom floor, a parquet floor. And then the light came up like that, and I'm there singing, and all I could see was the aura of this light, and I just fucking loved it. And I just went, I started singing and then forget the verse and then go back. And I thought, there is no way I am ever going to stop this moment. It was, I can still feel it. And everybody had to row. My sister reckons she rowed half the way to Australia.
Is she older, younger?
She's older. And Katrina and Anne were on the boat. And we met them on the first night. Katrina, Anne and Ethel. We met them on the first night, and we have
That sounds like a comedy trio.
Remained friends ever since. So
that's incredible.
She's my cousin, my bestie, and we've done everything together in life since we were 6 years old. Yeah, had my 7th birthday in Greece coming out, so I landed in Australia 7.
So you had these amazing moments on stage at 5 or 6, and you talk about the feeling that you can still feel in your body from the spotlight hitting you. And so becoming a performer from that, has that been you chasing the dragon, so to speak, to recapture that, or do you feel it every time?
Well, I've said this before in an interview, but if you were to ask my parents, they would say she was born to make us laugh. Like Dad said, she's a bugger, but she makes us laugh. And I think I got my comic timing off my dad, because he would watch all the English comedy shows with the Rhythmic 3, and it was fantastic. So I watched that with Dad. And so I was always doing concerts. I was always ready to perform. And when I was born, my sister was born, and 5 years later I come along and they think, oh, it might be a boy. And of course I was a girl, but they had picked out boys' names. And when it came to picking out my name, my dad picked it after Sally Ann Howes, who was an actress. And I ended up being an actress. Hey, amazing, isn't it? You think of my parents leaving England to come across here in 1967. There's no internet. There's none of that. You sent a telegram to tell the relatives over there that you've arrived. We didn't have relatives here. We had family friend here that had come over.
Yep.
But they're going across the world in their 30s with their children. That's brave.
How long was the boat ride?
For us, it was four and a bit weeks, just nearly 4.5 weeks. We came through the Panama Canal, and we were the second last boat before they shut it off for all those years.
Wow.
I remember that. I remember that because coming through and all the merchants along the canal, and my granddad pulling up a little bag that he got me for my birthday.
Have you still got it?
No. And do you know, Friends of Whyalla and all of that put up a post last year with the bag, and everybody waded in, because if you came through the Panama Canal, I bet you everybody got it for their kids. It was exactly the same bag.
Oh, wow.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
So what was Whyalla like when you obviously it was super hot? Where is Whyalla exactly? I don't really know, and I'm sure people at home listening.
It's about 250 miles in those days from Adelaide to Whyalla. And if you were to ask my dad, he used to say Whyalla was Aboriginal for keep on going. He did not like Whyalla. And BHP stood for Broken Hearted Pommies, because he was sponsored over here by BHP, because he worked in England at Dorman and Long Steelworks. So that's why we came over here. Yeah. And that was a 4-year contract. And we're all ready to go back to England. And then Auntie Ethel, who we met on the boat, said, come to Sydney first for a holiday, George and Lil, and see what Australia's like. This is what the brochures were about. So that's what we did. And we went to Bondi, because that's where Ethel lived, and we fell in love with it. We went back to Whyalla, and a year later we moved to Sydney, and that's where I did all my growing up and my schooling and training, nursing training.
Around Bondi?
Yeah, I was in Bondi, first of all, Coogee School, then I went to Bondi, Wellington Street, and then I went to Randwick Girls High. And then from there, I went to South Sydney Hospital and did my nursing training, and then I worked at Prince of Wales Hospital. Yeah.
So when you went into nursing, was performance just a thing that you loved to do? When did performance become a thing that you were pursuing actively, or was that all at the same time?
Well, I had it in my DNA, I think, all the way along. But when I was 15, I joined an amateur theatre group, and we put on concerts for kids and stuff like that. So at 15, I started an amateur theatre group, and then I used to write for all the hospital reviews, and I used to write my own material and put them on, and we used to get...
Is that because there weren't enough stages already for you, so you had to create your own?
Well, yeah, like even when I was nursing, put me in emergency or put me in theatre, I loved it. When I went to the operating theatre, I loved it. I was Professor Hollow's anaesthetic nurse for about 6 or 7 months. Yeah, because when I got up there to the first time I got into the theatres, I did theatre in my training, but I loved it. I was in the storage room, so you prep everything for all the ops or anything they need in the big major operating theatres. You data, you get it into the, I did that. And then I became an anaesthetic nurse. And I specialised in the kids because I could put kids to...
Of course.
Yeah, well, I used to play games with them, and half the time they didn't know, they were nodding off,
Jeez.
Yeah.
Every time I've been put under, I always just look at them and go, what are you going to do this time? You're going to make me count back from 10? Are you going to play a trick on me? Every time it's something different. What was yours?
I would, because a lot of it was the mask, and it smelt, and the kids didn't like that. And getting an injection in them, it's all different now. But what I used to do was just, if they were kicking off, I used to be in the corner going, ground control to Major Tom. I'd be singing songs, but I'd be totally ignoring them. I'd be just doing it myself. Ground control. And then I'd get the balloon and put it at the end and start blowing it and go, bee, bee. And of course, they wanted to blow the balloon. So then we would start to play, and then most of the anaesthetists would know me, and they would just come in and just attach the gas, and I'd be playing with them, and then they'd flop back in my arm, and then we'd intubate them and get them going. So that was always good. But if you had a feisty one, I loved it because, people talking down to kids. So what are you having today? And this one little boy, I remember he stood up on the trolley, he was 5, and go, I'm getting my penis fixed. I loved him. But we had sick kids too. That was always hard. It's always hard. Nursing kids is hard. And working with Fred was just great because he was, a great eye surgeon, but also he'd walk in with his pipe. He wasn't smoking his pipe, but he'd have it hanging out. And the charge sister of the theatres, she loved him, but she didn't like him, because he would add a couple of people onto the list at the end, and it's usually Indigenous kids that him and Gabby had brought to fix their eyes, and then they take them home, and it's just him doing humanitarian, and he was a great guy. I liked him, and I liked his wit,
Yeah, Fred being Fred Hollows, who's famous for
straight down to
helping the blind.
No airs or graces. And it's about getting sight. And I remember leaving the hospital one day, going down to the car park, and there's a kid that's been taken home by him and Gabby, and the kid's got the eye patch on, but the kid's just looking at all this infrastructure of a hospital and all that. And I'm just thinking, what a great thing to do, and I was a part of that. Yeah,
incredible human being, and to be around. And I can imagine he loved having you around too, Sal, because of your giving nature to all of those kids as well. So
he would be
I think
getting
it's a
ready
comment on you as much as him.
Yeah, he was a good man, and Gabby, she was the rock behind him too. It was a real sad moment when we found out about his cancer and he passed, But I feel like Forrest Gump sometimes in life because she touched people, the different areas I've done. I feel like, how Forrest Gump was always at the moment, it's like on Friday, you're there and there's Baz Luhrmann and you're there going, you're going, your mind just goes, it's bonkers,
Now,
isn't
we're
it?
jumping forward to the story, but Sal is referring to the ACTA Awards, where a film she was quite involved in won Best Film.
Didn't win 10 awards that night, was it?
Yeah, we got
Bring Her Back.
nominated for 16, Bring Her Back, the Danny and Michael Philippou and Causeway Films. And we got
You were
10
one of
of
those
them.
nominations.
Yeah, I got
Correct.
got my first gong nod for Best Supporting Actress. So
This is the third week in a row we've had an actor who has been nominated for an actor or actor. It's really hard to AACTA for the UK people out there. It's kind of like Australia's BAFTAs.
the Golden Globes. Yeah, well, we got to televise it that way because the televisation of it was a bit, how's your father? But we'll sort that out in the future. But I remember when I first heard about Bring Her Back that I got it because it was coming up to the anniversary of Mum's passing, the first one. So I was melancholy and we were on the set and we had that time, Maddie, where I was in that quiet room and you just asked that question, are you okay? And I went, yeah, I am. And, it's hard for this reason, but I was under strict confidentiality and everything.
You
but
did well.
Just needed to have that moment. And I knew you could be trusted with that. Well, a lot of people at Neighbours, but especially you. And it was lovely to share that moment with you.
Yeah.
And
I'll never
not
forget.
thinking it would come to this,
Yeah.
It was a magical ride. It was a very...
So you confided in Maddie that you'd gotten the role.
Yeah, because...
No, look, Sal, I'll give you credit. I don't think you broke any rules.
No.
I don't think you broke any rules. You gave me enough, but not enough to legally get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But it was, I think you basically said, like, this is extremely exciting. It's going to be a horror. It's like, for you, the people involved, it's incredibly exciting, but I didn't really get much more than that. But I could just see how much energy and how much uplift it gave you, especially during that time. As well.
It was wonderful. And the experience was wonderful, working with those boys and working with the whole team. And you do work in front of camera, and I've done a lot of it over the last 13 years. But when you work on that level with these, not all actors would enjoy it because it does test you. But I love improvisation. I love the spontaneity of but the way they think just catches you off guard.
This is the two Filippo brothers, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
some people, particularly in the UK, might not know about these guys' stories. So they're fill in the blanks here for me. But they've started a really popular YouTube channel making all sorts of videos, but definitely not horror. I think currently the best directors in our country, with the best upcoming directors, they've done 2 films which have been absolutely smashed out of the park. The first one, it cost like $6 million and returned over 90 or something for A24.
That's right. They Raka Raka Boys are big on the internet, and then they wrote Talk to Me, and then they got an American producer. But they wanted to change everything and make it American and that. And the boys went, no. So they held out, and they were on the seat of their pants. They moved back with Mum and Dad, and then Causeway Film took it up. They produced it, took it to Cannes, and A24 backed them. And I don't know how much it cost to make, but it ended up making $92 million.
Wow.
And then everybody wants Bring Her Back Talk to Me too, but they had already had this thought about Bring Her Back, which is is in the horror genre, but it's really a psychological thriller. And
Yeah.
the anticipation for this film was enormous for them.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm really glad I did not know the worth of them before I did the audition, because I wasn't tainted by that.
Yeah, for sure.
And what happened now is everybody was anticipating it. It went nuts, and it's they got best
Huge.
direction. But take
Yeah.
horror out of it. You are right, Maddie. It set them up as real filmmakers of this generation, and that's why Baz Luhrmann and Fred Skepsey find them hysterical, but are so excited. So
Yeah, they gave them a nod in Baz Luhrmann gave them a nod in their speech and said, this is the new age of cinema, these guys right here. And looking at all the photos, they've taken a real loving to you, haven't they? You were in the front of every single photo.
Well, I got on well with them because it's not
Yeah.
just about your audition for acting. You have a meeting with them. It was all on Zoom, but they've got to know they would have to know you've got to have the right temperament of people around that sort of energy. And so we got on like a house on fire. It's like when I work with you guys, when I work with Anti-Donna guys, it just brings you to life because you're working with, I'm still 32. Spiritually, because starting Neighbours, it's me, we were it. You were the reason why I started, Reggie and all of
That's
that.
right. Stole our dog.
Stole.
Vera
That's
the
brilliant.
Punt. Yeah,
Vera the Punt. Shocker.
I still don't know who named your character Vera Punt.
I reckon Jason would have been behind
so
some
good.
of it.
There is a Punt Road in Melbourne. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Because that was only supposed to be a one-off, and look what happened.
Yeah, but that's a tribute to you, Sal. There is a certain amount of luck that comes with this industry, but there's a certain amount of luck that you create as well, and the energy that you bring. And I think the Philippou brothers would have seen this as well. It's something that it is infectious and something you want to be around. Ironic that it's infectious being a nurse, but so be it. And giving those scenes to you as Vera Punt and seeing how much the screen lit up and what you bring to the screen. All I can remember is that yelling match between you and me over little Reggie. And like those scenes, even though they're intense, but it's so much fun working with someone who's willing to just go to whatever level that needs to be gone to. It comes across on the screen, and once people see that, they're like, well, we want more of that. We can't lose that. And so her continued stories definitely credit to your work and personality.
And I think being around camera, like when I decided to do unit nursing, it was a big thing for me because you've got to be a working actor. A lot of people think because you're on the telly that you're making millions, but that's not the case. There's only 3% of actors worldwide that are in that $1 million bracket. The rest of us, as you guys know, are working actors.
So we skipped a lot. We skipped a lot with getting to the Philippou brothers. Back to you studied nursing, and then where did acting become a career whilst you were developing as a nurse?
Well, I had finished at the Prince of Wales. I went to Prince Henry's Hospital and I worked as an escort nurse, and I also worked on the prison ward there. And that's because it was a Monday to Friday job. I had a lot of time over the weekend. So when it came to the hospital review, there was a big outcry about the review the year before because the doctors ran it. And it was all about the doctors. So I went and pled my case to matrons saying it should be for everybody. So I ended up putting on the concert involving everybody and writing a lot of stuff. And so that's where that happened. So I'd already written a lot of stuff for this concert that we ended up doing for the hospital staff and their friends. And then Channel 9 picked up on it because everybody was talking about it. So we did one for the patients where we got all the patients on the wards down to the room to watch the concert. And matron said she doesn't have the manpower. So I rang all the ambos and said, helped me, and one of the escort orderlies was a bikie, so he got all his bikie gang. So we got all of the patients down to the hall. It's great.
Half of them chaperoned by bikies.
Chaperone. One girl, I never forget, she was, well, when I say girl, she was a young woman. She would have been in her early 20s. And she was really sick, and she only had days to live. And all she wanted was to go down, and it was a big thing for the family, letting her go and all of that. But anyway, we got her down there, and she was in a lot of pain. And that's when they were only just starting to think of medical marijuana. But the bikies took her out, gave her a little toke, brought her in, and she sat. I still remember, oh God, I still remember in the bed looking up at us on stage, laughing her head off, just having a whale of a time. And then 2 days later, she was gone. But I remember that so well. So I had all these scripts, and then I left. I thought I'm going to leave nursing and go great picking around Australia. But I knew Linda Gibson, and she had just got a role at the Murray River Performing Group with Denise Scott and Peter Brown, and they started up Crystal Dewdrops, and we dropped into Albury to see their play in the end of 1980. And Scotty said to me, Denise Scott said to me, oh, we've been auditioning for Liquid Amber, Jack Hibbert's play here in Albury for the Murray River Performing Group. You'd make a great Valhalla Strzelecki. It's a shame you've missed the audition. And but we're doing them in Melbourne, so we could get you down to Melbourne. So that's what I did. I went on a train down to Melbourne. I didn't know what improvisation was. I didn't know anything about that. Alan, he taught me what improvisation was just in case I needed it. I'd got one of the scripts from nursing about, it was two cleaners talking about their husband getting their thong caught in the ice bovo machine. And I trimmed it down to me talking to somebody on the phone, and that's what I did. I got on a train. This is a true story. I got on a train, got down, I got taken to the VCA, and I've never been to Melbourne, and all I knew is we met in the cafeteria, and there was ballet dancers eating apples, and all the actors were in black, and every time they spoke, they stood up. And I just remember, because I was only 20, 21, and I remember going, this is so weird. And then they said to me, oh, if you go into the room, Sally Ann, you're the first up for the audition after lunch, I'll take you to the room and you can warm up. And I remember going, who are these people? They're very strange. It's fucking summer. I'm warm. I didn't even know what a warm up was. That's how green I was. And then all I did was fart. I was so nervous. I just farted.
That'll warm you up.
Yeah, that'll warm me up. And then they came in and I did my piece of this woman talking down the phone, the ice fovo machine. And then the director went, oh, can we take that character and we'll put you and Scotty in a lift? And we did an improvisation. I knew what that was because I learnt it off the dictionary. You make shit up. And then the director, Richard, got a piece of script and said, would you mind reading this? And that's when panic set in. I just panicked because I have dyslexia, but at the time you don't tell people about that stuff. It's neurodiversity now. A lot of actors have it. And I just froze. But Linda Gibson knew that I had dyslexia. And she saved the day by going, oh, we don't need that, and da-da-da-da, and out we went. And then I found out on the Wednesday that I got the role, and that's what started my professional career. And I ended up staying in Albury and never saw a grape. Never saw a grape. And was there for 7.5 years. And that's when I started working with Lynne McGranger, and we started doing our little skits at the Galah Bar, because there was a bar at the back of the New Albury Hotel. It was a bus shelter, and we turned it into a comedy room. And it was bigger than the comedy rooms down in Melbourne. We were getting bums on seats on a Tuesday night filled. And we used to make up all of our all of our material and do it. And so me and Lynne McGranger, Irene, Home and Away, Golden Logie, Silver Logie. Yeah, we did that. And we used to have a bin thing. Sulos. You know Sulo bins when they first came out. Well, when they first came out,
bins that
they were big
bins that
and it was
have,
all plastic and it was all fantastic. So we were on stage at the Glad Bar. In our bins, there was Lynn, me, and John Walker. And
the original bin night.
Yeah, we'll be in our bins and we go, Sue. One bin would come up. Sue. Sulo, Sulo. Daylight come and we're still around the back. Sulo, Sulo. Daylight come and we're still around the back. And then we'd go into a whole, and it was hysterical. And then all of a sudden it goes into George Michael. What is it? Sulo Bing, you are the one. You put your garbage in when the day is done. You're green, you're plastic and large. And you come with wheels and you're free of charge. You just eat rubbish that you don't use, like old used condoms and last week's stews. There's just one thing we are asking of you. Put me out before you go, 'cause we don't really want to miss the garbo. Put us out before you go, before you go raging tonight. And then we go.
I think we've got a new theme song, Matty.
Theme song.
That is brilliant.
And I remembered it. Yeah.
This is what year was this?
This was 1980s, 81. And Lynne McGranger was
my God.
She was a great parody writer, Lynn. And she had great lines. But we used to do this skit with parking inspectors, but we used to have parking meters on it. We made the costume ourselves out of foam rubber in a parking meter. And we used to come through the audience as these parking inspectors throwing shit at the audience and everything. And Downtown, she did a great parody to Downtown, but about parking meters. We did a lot of stuff there. Yeah. Mel Gibson used to come and watch us a lot because he had property up there. One time he had Boris Johnson. I will never forget that. Boris Johnson came and saw our show. This is before he became a politician, because he was on a gap leave with his school and he was staying at Ginger Gap, a family at Ginger Gap, and he came and saw our show.
We've had a heap of Neighbours scenes where you've done stuff up on stage or whatever, and every time I see your name on a call sheet, I start laughing before you've even arrived, because I just know we're going to be in for a good day. And I wish I was there. I can actually see everything happening.
It was in the days when the government subsidised community to have theatre into every community. It was all subsidised by the government, the MRPG. And then we broke off and started Funny Business, our own company, and that's when we started up with the Spangles family, which came from the Glad Bar. We started up the Spangles family, and that was like Beatlemania. And I'm not our trumpet, but we will put on concerts. Our last concert was down Mungab Arena. There was over 15,000 people all there on New Year and everything. We used to do major concerts down there.
And how long did that company you'd formed operate, essentially?
About 2.5, nearly 3 years. Funny Business, yeah. And then came down to Melbourne and did the Normans, and then decided to do stand-up as my own, as a giant singing sewer rat. Go figure. Like, give myself bonkers.
Are we ever going to see another stand-up performance by Sally Ann Upton? Because I would love to see it.
Stand-up's hard because when it works, you don't get a spinal tingle like it. When you're on your own on stage and something is working, I've had those moments in my life. One when I did Late Night Catechism, I'll never forget, but as a stand-up. But when they don't work, it really is hard. Oh, that's why I tip my hat. And also, we were coming out in a time where blokes could say anything, but girls, it was like, if you weren't funny in 2 seconds or show us your tits.
Oh, Tack. I have been working like a dog this week. My skin is just so dry. It's outrageous. What's going on with you? You're in Melbourne. How come your skin's glowing?
Well, I've got a secret. It's magic. It's Egyptian magic. You can use it on your face, your body, even as a hair treatment.
And where did you get this stuff from, this magic potion?
From our pals and sponsors at beautyboat.com. They sent you some as well, and for a limited time, our Bin Night audience gets 25% off Egyptian magic and their entire order by using the code BIN25.
Egyptian magic, huh? Oh. Oh. Wait a second. Did you say I can use this anywhere?
Well, yeah, but don't get weird. You can use Egyptian magic as a face moisturizer, an eye cream, scar treatment, hair mask, baby cream, shaving balm, and anything else you might think of. It's got beeswax, honey, bee pollen, royal jelly, propolis.
I'm going to stock up. So what do we do? Beautyboat.com. I put everything, add all into cart. Yes, that's going straight into my basket. And the code is
BIN25. That's spelled BIN25. You get 25% off your whole order.
You guys can browse the website as there are so many incredible products, including the signature discovery boxes. Ooh la la.
Thank you, beautyboat.com.
Thank you, beautyboat.com.
Beautyboat is our official beauty partner here at Bin Night with Tack and Maddie.
Hey, Tack, is there such a thing as OnlyHands? What?
You know, I mean, it's the classic example of the joke. We're doing the Natural Normans, and there was 45 firemen and their spouses in the joke squashed in for their party, Christmas party, and they're lighting our shoelaces and think it's funny.
You're kidding.
And Scotty has just given birth to Geordie, or Bonnie. She's got a newborn, and she actually bent over and said, I am a nursing mother. Can you not burn my shoelaces? And they thought it was funny. And when we put in a complaint about it, they did a spot check on The Last Laugh and got them to put all these fire things in and everything like that. But we had firemen lighting our shoelaces because they didn't think women were funny. Jokes Without Blokes was the first thing at the comedy festival where it was a stage where there was no male comedians. And it wasn't coming from the comedians, some, yeah, but predominantly no. We were supported by our male colleagues, but the audiences was very harsh. So I just wanted to get out of stand-up, and I was putting on a lot of weight, and I've always had a weight issue since I was 13. And then I bent over to pick up my tail as a singing rat to play the saxophone one night and split my whole suit. And I was ropeable. I put on weight. I'm losing my shit. I go to my kinesiologist, and she says to me, oh, you've grown out of the character. And I thought, interesting way of thinking about it. I thought, how am I going to kill this character? And Pam Barnes was producing Hey Hey It's Saturday, and I knew if you went on Hey Hey It's Saturday on Red Faces, if you win it, you get $500, and I needed a new mattress. So I thought, if I go on national television with this character, I won't do it again. And that's what I did, and I won it. And I killed the character. And
did you buy the mattress?
I did. I went and got my new mattress. Yeah.
Listening to all of these stories and the stuff that you've gone through, it was inevitable, Sal. There's the work that you've done, the person that you are. If you didn't end up on the actor's stage with arguably the currently the best emerging filmmakers in Australia, I mean, it would be it's silly that hasn't happened sooner.
And I think that for me, going on as a set nurse gave me so much by lowering my ego and going, I need to do this for myself. And then I treated it as I'm looking after these people, has now come back to me, because every time I'm in front of camera, the crew want to be around me because they know I looked after them. And they've often, the crew that worked with me on the early stages said, when you first came on, we were going, oh, how long is this fucking going to last? A fucking actor coming on, how long is this going to... But it was like that. It was, I had to get over my ego and be there, and it was the greatest thing. And I had somebody come up to me who came on set as an added character and said to me, and it was somebody I knew very well, said, aren't you embarrassed by what you're doing? And I said, what are you talking about? Being the nurse when you're an actor and you should be in front of the camera. And I said, well, what do you do when you aren't in front of the camera? Because I knew they didn't have a lot of work. And they went, oh, I'm a, in those call centres, calling people, cold calling people. And I said, aren't you embarrassed? I said, I'm around my craft, because I learnt so much. I would never have got to work with Susan Sarandon if I was an actor. In the film that I worked with her on, there was no character for me. I was just doing second unit. It was in the day of fax. The fax was still there. I got called up. Could you do second unit on Irresistible? I went, yeah, I could. The fact comes through, you're thinking, there's the call sheet. What time am I on in the morning? Oh, God, I've got to be there at 5:30, fine. And I'm looking at it, Susan Sarandon and Sam Neill. I normally don't gush, but I just went, oh, Susan Sarandon. I just love her work. I am going to be on set. What? I was going ape shit. And I'm cleaning my teeth going, oh, I'm thinking to myself, even if it's just at the coffee machine, I say hello to her. I'd be happy with that. I'll be happy to watch her. But so I get on set. It's down at Williamstown. I get all my gear out the car. You got to tromp your gear all the way over. The second comes up to me and goes, "Are you Sal, the unit nurse for the day?" And I go, "Yeah." They said, "Oh, we're just blocking. And when we're finished, Susan would like to see you in her trailer, if you don't mind." And I went, yeah, sure. I go around the back of the tree going, fuck.
In the bushes?
I can't believe it. I'm going in the fucking trailer with I'm going fucking ape shit myself. And of course, I go in and I can't say what it is because it's personal and stuff like that, but I'm face to face with Susan Sarandon. And first impression was she's beautiful, but I just went, oh my gosh, she's shorter than what I thought she was. I thought she would be a bit taller than me, but she was actually a little bit shorter than me. Anyway, she tells me what's going on, and all I said to her was, are you which you guys all know how I am as a nurse, I go, are you a chemical girl or are you an alternative? She said alternative. So I went down the alternative route. I got her alternative medicine, administered it to her, checked in on her, and then that was it because, I saw her work. I was in the graveyard when she came out. It's a front row seat, masterclass to Susan Sarandon and Sam Neill. It was fantastic. I got asked to come back a couple of weeks later because I needed a second unit, and there just happens to be an injury, and everybody's flapping because Susan Sarandon's been or whatever, and I get on set, and there was somebody acting really inappropriately, spinning out about it, so I've got the authority. I just said, clear set. And they're going, what? I said, clear set. So they clear set. I'm there with Sam Neill. Sam says, I'll leave you to it. He's a gorgeous man. And so is she. And then I'm doing chi healing on Susan, just having a chat. But you see what I mean? It's kind of like I've learned looking at my own ego sometimes, because we're all out there, we've all got that. But sometimes dropping back gives you grace, and it gives you another perspective and gives you all of these experiences that you wouldn't have. You know, it's like when young actors say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because I've only got one line," or I always remember what Bud Timwell taught. I was on set with Bud one time, and he actually said he never knocks anything back, even if it's a one-line or a look, long as the project's morally what he wants to be a part of, because you never know what it is and who you meet. And it's very true. I take that.
Mm.
That's his legacy, and I take that. And I also teach that if ever I'm teaching acting, yeah.
When Sal was a nurse during COVID, we all had to get the COVID tests as we drove in. So the actors and the crew would pull up into this bay. Sal would be in a gown and the mask and everything, come out and
Full
get a stick
PPE.
and touch your brain with it. The beginning of COVID, the protocol was to get a swab of your brain and then stick it out and see if you were contagious or not. And then we go through. And one day, just out of absolutely nowhere, we had never, ever, ever spoken about this before. We'd usually just go up, say, "Good morning, here's my nose, how are you?" "Yeah, good, good, good." And we just walked in and she went to get the swab and she just stopped. She puts her hands by her side and she just says to me, "You're having a baby, aren't you?" And I was like looking at her going, what the fuck? Like literally an hour before that, we did a test and it was positive for our first child.
Was it
Had not
only an
told-
hour?
Oh my! It was that morning. We had not told a soul, and we were like, "Whoa!" I didn't know what to say. I was like, "Oh," in my head, I was thinking, "Oh, Jess has spoken to you somehow." I'm like, "Wait, you don't know who Jess is? How do you know this? How did you do this?" And you said, "Oh, by the way, I'm psychic." And every time someone says something about being psychic, I'm always a little skeptical because there's a lot of people who might not really have that ability, but from that moment on, I am a believer. That blew my mind, and you've done it again since as well, just in smaller capacities. But that was a moment that I'm never going to forget, Sal. How did you do it?
What was that moment like for you, Sal? Like where did that come from for you? For you,
I say I wouldn't. I call it the Fae. In England, you call it the Fae, and I didn't know where I got it from until 2009. But right through since I was about 13, 14, I liked tarot and got into that. But I just knew things. And I think everybody's got it, but people are more tuned or they've got that background or whatever. And I call them flash, but it's not like it flash. It's just a thought comes to me and I just say it. Sometimes you get a weird reaction, but I did not know. I learned because there was another time in when I was in the 90s, my friend Gemma Pledger, she was a tarot reader and she had a little shop across the road before the Coles supermarket there on the corner of Ackland and Barclay Street. She had a little tarot sort of setup. And I was learning tarot and I really wanted to do it. So I used to go and sit in the corner of the shop and watch her do it and just learn my tarot, And then one time she was busy and she goes, "Oh, Sal will read you." I shat myself and I had to start reading people. And I just went with it and I just thought any images that come up, I'm just going to speak about them. And it doesn't mean anything to me, but it might mean something to you. Like I remember a girl, she came in and all I could see her was with her hands washing things all the time. And I said it, and then at the end of the tarot read, she goes, "I'm a dishwasher by day, and a dog washer by day and a dishwasher by night, but I want to do something different." It was all about her creativity. So that's when I realised I've got to start listening to these things. So now I get the Fae all the time. And it was when I went back to England in 2008 and 2009 because I was born in England and I wanted to go over and test the waters over there because I'd just come off what was it, Oliver, and I knew they were putting on Oliver, so I was going over there for an audition, all of that stuff. And I ended up going on the trip ended up not being about me working in England. It ended up being about, I had this 1 week where I went and tried to find my grandmother's and grandparents' graves with my aunt, because my mum's side of the family were brought up in an orphanage. So they didn't know a lot about their parents, and we were trying to find the history, and we did. But I ended up meeting a cousin, and she tells a story about my great-great-grandmother Ruth, who was a spiritualist. And it was around the time of the aristocrats, when they just got cars and they would turn up in their cars to get a reading from her. She used to read teacups, apparently. And then ever so often, after about 5 or 6 people, she would come out onto the veranda and smoke her pipe. And it didn't matter whether you were a rich person or a poor person, you had to wait in line to have your reading with her. Well, to me, it was the biggest joy, because now I knew where my fae came from, because nobody else in our family had the fae, but I did. So I just speak the truth. Like I knew that rainbow over the building when everything was hitting the fan about Neighbours closing and everything like that. That day, I never forget it, when all that was hitting off, and it was devastating for everybody.
Was this the second time or the first time?
The first time.
First time, yeah.
And we're dealing with all that we were dealing with, just coming out of COVID. It was a really arduous job, that job. And there it was, and there's everybody coming, all of you guys coming through, so upset, Jason and everything. And I remember Andrew had just pulled up, Andrew, our producer, Andrew Thompson. And I said to him, because get out the car in COVID meant you had COVID.
Mm.
And and we just had that rain go over. And then I saw the rainbow as he pulled up, and it was right over the whole building. And I said, get out the car. And he thought he had COVID. He gets out the car. And I said, turn around, look up. I said, look at that rainbow. And he's there going, oh, yeah, it's a rainbow. So, and I said, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. And they just looked at me as if I had 3 heads. But I knew we were going to be all right. There was something about that. And then seeing that rainbow on the other one, but it was a different rainbow. There's something else coming in there. But yeah.
Oh, on the second cancellation, you saw another rainbow.
Coming out of Pinot Court.
Oh.
It was the day I drove in after we knew we were finishing. It was, yeah. But it's just having the faith in that, and sometimes it's a healing thing.
I have to ask the question, because a lot of viewers out there would want to know, what do you think? How do you interpret that second rainbow?
I think it's the possibility of it coming back is there, but it will be in a totally different incarnation of it. That's how I felt. But the thing that came out of it was the only words that came with it was, we're going to be all right. Now that can be interpreted as it could come back, or it could be interpreted that everybody on this production is going to be all right. If it wasn't for you guys, when I was on Neighbours doing that unit nursing, sometimes coming through seeing your faces, you didn't realise how much you kept me afloat, because that was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to do. And I would never have gotten that role if I wasn't an actor and a nurse, and that's the reason why they asked me to be there, because they knew everybody would trust me. I didn't know what I was doing. We were making it up as we went. Thank God for Chris Donis and Natalie Lynch. They saved our bacon, and they set up the protocol for the rest of it. And people don't understand how hard that was. But it really puts you in good stead for looking at both sides. And when people come through entitled, it's always good to be around people when there's no tosses. We've all got ego, but you got to keep them in check. Gone are the days where you walk on set not knowing your lines. The crew will say, "All right, we've been here for 2 hours. Are you going to get your lines right today?" And you do get your lines right, and that's why I don't like it when people hold court or treat a crew member disrespectfully. Some of the stories and the things I've seen, and I've pulled people up for them. And, and you just go, you need to be on unit for a month. You need to work on unit for a month or, put them somewhere because,
they need some understanding.
They need some understanding.
And their ego checked in that way,
Yeah.
I think we all know what you're saying there, Sal.
Yeah, and it's like that. But you've got to focus on, I remember, a lot of us didn't know what was going on in COVID and we were trying our best, but all of you came through and supported me and everybody's choices and what we were doing. We're all bumbling through it together. 90% of you were just as frightened, just as scared, just as confused as all of us. 5 were struggling because of different reasons, and then 5 just didn't get it. And you just want to go, yeah. And it was Chris Donis that said, concentrate on the 95. Don't concentrate on the 5. Because, that's, it's interesting. When you do get a tosser, it's very interesting. But I usually get around it with sarcasm.
There's 3 things that we've got to cover.
Okay.
First off, Wentworth. That coming along.
We haven't even scratched the surface.
How it changed things for you.
Juicy Lucy.
Juicy Lucy. Amazing.
It introduced you to Australia and the world, I guess, in a very different light to perhaps how they might have seen you in other things.
Yeah, well, she was an evil character, and there's some actors that don't want to do that, but I love doing that. But when Wentworth came out, I was doing Mary Poppins, and then we were on that contract, long-running contract. And let's face it, you don't normally get a long-running contract. And that was for nearly 3 years I did that. So I was out of the picture because that came in. And then it was made, the first season was made, and it started taking off. And then they did the second season. And it was when I came out of Mary Poppins, they were thinking about the third season. And Lucy Gambaro, which is the character that I played, wasn't in Prisoner. So it's not something that the people would know. They wrote this new character. And the first scene I did was the scene where I'm bailing up Liz's daughter. And, everything happens in the shower. Or the canteen, And so I got that, and it was a fairly full-on script. And I always wanted to be in it, but there was talk about the freak. And some people were pitching, saying to them, get Sal Upton for the freak, because, I was on that thing, but you couldn't go past Pamela Ray. Let's just say she was the most amazing freak. And then Juicy Lucy Gambaro came along. So I went and did the audition, and I said to Kevin, do you want me to do it full on? And he said, yeah. And I said to the reader in the room, because I had to bail her up by her crutch against the wall. So I wanted to make sure that where I could put my hand and it was appropriate for her. And so we did it. And then he went cut, and then there was just froze, and they just went, oh. And I said, would you like me to do it again? And he said, no, I think we've got it. And then 10 days later, you're on set doing, getting makeup and coming up with the character. And the costume designer wanted to get you in to say how you want your look to be. And we wanted it cut off there because they wanted tattoos. And then we're trying to work out what the tattoos were. And I was only booked for the third season for 5 eps. That was what the contract was. But then when we started performing, then I was ready to go to Italy with my friend. But they rang and said, would you consider putting off your trip and just staying for the season? And, of course, I'm thinking I don't want to let my friend down, but Doris was in publicity years ago. She used to be a publicist. She went, you are not going to give this opportunity up. We can go to Italy anytime. So, anyway, I ended up doing that. So, out of 5 eps, I ended up getting 4 seasons. And it was wonderful, and they kept writing and writing. And, of course, then came Juicy Lucy's demise after, because she was an evil prisoner for those people that haven't seen the show. And she would, make you laugh before she robs and bashes you. And I loved doing her, and I could draw on my prison days, because I'd worked on prison wards, plus I had worked in prisons here at the Joan the Frost thing at Fairley, because I used to go into prisons and work with the women, do improvisation and do improvisation.
Was there anything that you directly pulled across?
No, I just knew the background, because you never get a background of the character coming in for the audience to see. Yep. So I drew on, she was a timer. Juicy Lucy is definitely a timer. She needs to be in prison because it's structure. Yep. She's one of those ones that always flounder on the outside. You've got people who are a one-off person that will do a crime and then you won't ever see them again. And you've got people who will rot in there because of their nature. Because I remember working in that prison ward was full on, because I was only, I would have only been 19, 20 working in there. So it was a good lesson for me.
So Juicy Lucy had a tongue cut out.
Yeah.
Was that how you left the show, or was it just in the middle somewhere?
The thought was, at first, when they first told me about the tongue being cut out, the first thing I thought was, well, I'm dead. Because if your tongue is cut out, if you don't have the right equipment, you're going to bleed out, because it's the biggest organ. I know that medically. So I thought, oh, I'm dead. Oh, no. We've got thought about bringing you back and signing. And that really excited me. And Joe Porter was excited by that, the producer of Fremantle at the time, and Pino and everything. So I thought, oh, this is great. And I remember me and Pamela Ray being called in when we first got the scripts, because I had to, the reason why she gets her tongue cut out is what she did to Pamela in the early seasons. So this is the reason why. So we rehearsed, me and Pam, for the scene, and I was excited because I was going to come back signing. But of course, when it came back, as writers do, they think of other things. So I ended up being in the background, was not there. So it was time for the character to go. But no, I didn't die. I literally got my tongue cut out. And that was interesting, because I thought, wow, I'm going to do some research on people that had the tongue cut out. Yeah. And I remember Googling it. And it was this guy's story, and it was over in the Middle East, and he was captured, and he knew too much. He was captured and kidnapped, and they were going to kill him. And then they decided not to kill him. They would send him back, and he was gone for months. Like, his family thought he was dead. And then the only thing they did was chop off his tongue so he couldn't tell them. And he wrote, it was the most painful thing, but I couldn't scream. It was a cut-off moment. And I remember that. And so that's what I did for it, because me and Pam did about half a day's rehearsal, and the shooting of it took 7 hours. But when I did that moment, I knew I had done it right, because all the crew audibly gasped. Now, if your actor friends audibly gasp, we're all encouraging of each other. But if your crew do it, because they see a lot of shit.
They see everything, yeah.
I knew I'd done it right. And working with Pam, And I thought, look, if I go out of a series, what a way to go. Tongue cut out, national television with Pamela Rave straddling you. It's going to be watched. Sorry, I'm going to segue here. Me and you are about to do the play reading with Lucinda and Megan, Lucinda Cowden. Soapbox.
At the Flinders what was it? Flinders Fringe Festival?
It's very hard to say. Flinders Fringe Festival.
And I'm quite sick, so it's even extra hard to say. I've got the
thing here. And just so you know, it's a play reading. So they've written this play and it's based on a soap opera.
It's really good.
It's really good because it talks about all the things of like soaps aren't honoured here as much as what they are overseas by different people. AI, all those things coming together. It's very cleverly crafted. Hence why we all want to do it. Plus work together again.
It's
but it's
you, me, Lucinda, Ryan,
Maloney,
Megan,
and John. And Megan, who wrote it with Lucinda, wrote on Neighbours as well.
Yes. And John Voice. And yeah.
And Marianne?
Marianne. Yeah. And it's just... It's going to be a play reading. And for those people who have never been to a play reading, we will have the scripts. We're just loosely blocking, but we are going to read it off the page and just bring it to life. And what we do is do it in front of an audience for them to give us feedback. So any fans out there, this is not a meet and greet. Come and see us. And we might say hello, but it's not a meet and greet, but it's a chance to come and see new work in its total infancy. So you guys are going to be the first ones to hear it, and we're going to be performing it in hope.
And it gives a little bit of a behind-the-scenes kind of insight into the soap world as well. So it is really interesting for anyone who's interested in soaps. But it's also just a great script as well. So I think a lot of people enjoy just coming and obviously with the amazing Lucinda and Ryan and yourself really being the crux of it, you guys. You say it, I can hear you trying to defend yourself already because it's only a rehearsed reading, but what you guys bring, even just at the table read, is phenomenal. So I think people will really enjoy it. So definitely grab your tickets.
Yeah, and it's tricky. I find those things tricky myself because I'm an actor and a performer and that. But when you've got neurodiversity, which I've just realised it's in that, of dyslexia, this is your worst nightmare. Because you're reading and speaking, but that's what pushes you. That's what gives you the spark. But it is a great piece. You're so right. I wish.
You'll get your first laugh, and you.
I really wish you were down this way for this, Maddie. You would love it. You would absolutely love it.
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to get it produced.
Makes me nervous, the idea of being up there. Yeah, great.
There's one last thing I wanted to bring up, Sal, before we let you go, because we've gone so over time, but I think it's important, is all your work with the Victorian Actors Benevolent Trust, because it's such important work. Is there anything you want to talk about with that and the work that you've done there and the importance of it?
It is important because a lot of people, like what we've talked about, they see you on screen, they think you're loaded. How many times, especially being on Wentworth, have I been asked, how much do you earn? And you say, well, how much do you earn? Oh, that's none of your business. Well, it's none of yours either. Because if people see us on the screens or see us doing something and they think we earn a lot of money, but we don't. So when a performer falls on hard times, and when we say hard times, it's not, oh, I can't pay my mortgage this week. I've got a serious illness. Because we're transient people, we go from job to job, we're flying here, we're flying there, you're touring, you're doing that. You don't build up a lot of super, not unless you're on a long-running show. You don't have the backup of sick leave, sick pay, because we're going for different jobs. So when a performer falls on hard times, they've got nowhere to turn. And our skill sets still aren't recognised by Centrelink. in places like France and Europe, they've got the status of the artist legislation, which we tried to get on board in 2017. We went to Canberra to try to lobby for that. And that's where you can be a performer and know that all your rehearsals, all what you're doing now, it's still a part of your work. Like you guys actually doing this and promoting is getting money in for your family and also putting out a product. We're not in that in Centrelink. But so when we fall on hard times, we really fall through a lot of gaps. We're not recognised in that way. So the VABT and all the benevolent trusts in each state are there to help support performers. So through COVID, if it wasn't for us, because we couldn't get any of the handouts that the government were offering because we didn't have a stable one person for a year because we go from job to job. So that way we kept all fridges full of food. We paid for a lot of people's putting the lights on, their electricity, their utilities. We got people to appointments. I always say we can't talk about people's cases because they're confidential, because actors will want to keep it very private that they're ill, because if it's heard that they're ill, everybody writes them off as dead, and especially in social media world we're in now. So it's all confidential, but there are some actors that allow us to tell the story. And there was Linda Phillips, and she was an actor in South Australia, and she was 23, and she had just given birth, I think it was to her second child, and she found out that she had a very rare form of breast cancer, and she had only just given birth, and she was given this terrible news, and the prognosis was within the next 3 to 6 months, she would lose her life to this rare disease. And the benevolent trust in South Australia at the time wasn't set up. So her case came across our table, which we're a volunteer committee and we're actors or performers in some way. And we looked at it and we couldn't afford what she needed because she found out about it on the Friday. It came across our desk on the Monday, and the trial to go on for these new drugs was on the Friday, and it was a very large amount of money. We couldn't afford it. So we asked New South Wales and Queensland to help us. I rang her up and said, go for it, darling. You've got the trial. And Linda, and that was in 2007, and Linda is still alive today, still taking those trial drugs and still seeing her children grow up. And that's the type of work
incredible.
The VABT do. But we bury a lot of people. We help out as much as we can. So when we say this as a charity, some people say, oh, I'm not giving to that. That's not a charity. They are loaded, those people, but they're not. So, and I have been associated, going into my 26th or 27th year of being on the committee, and I was the president for over 13 and a half years, but I'm still on the committee. And still working, and I will always be a part of it some way because I really do think actors and crew really need us in that time. So that's the Victorian Actors Benevolent Fund. We raised money for the Artists Relief Fund in Western Australia when I was over there for Carol, and I got lovely Black Swan let us do 2 bucket rattles, and we raised over $6,000 in those bucket rattles, and it all goes to actors and crew in need. And we help people. Like for years, we lost a stunt guy once, and so we look after the family until the kids have all grown up. We might buy a motor get a motor vehicle for somebody that's get it all they
don't have transport.
Yeah. So, and we get people to and from treatments and all. We do amazing work, and it's all volunteered. So whenever you see those buckets in any state, please come forward, because if COVID didn't teach us anything, we desperately needed to have us performing in some shape or form. We lived off it through COVID and our isolation. It proved our worth.
Sal.
Yeah.
Well, Sal, I could listen to you talk forever. But your work with the Victorian Actors Benevolent Trust, as well as your work as a nurse, on-set nurse for Neighbours, and arriving on set, even to have you shove something up our nose uncomfortably, it was always a joy to see your face because of what you brought. I mean, you dressed up nearly every day, I think, in different outfits and stuff, just because you knew you would start everyone's day off with a smile, and that makes a huge difference in those difficult times. And it's so welcome to hear that we were able to give back to you as well, to help you.
You saved
through
my
that time
bacon
too.
so many times, you guys, because it was hard. It was so hard, and people didn't realise what we were dealing with every moment of every day. And that's why I never forget, about 7 months into it, we had that thing. We remember when Chris came and they give those nods for people who had worked there for a long time, and we always used to come together for that, but we couldn't. And if you were in studio, you had to do it in the courtyard, and we all had to be distanced apart. And I remember Jason, and I just went to hear it. And I remember Jason, who was allowed to pull his mask, and he went, "We just want to thank Sal for what she's doing on the front line." That blew me away. And then all the crew cheered, and the cast, and he says, "I don't know how we're going to repay you." And then some crew member went, "Write more Vera Punt." Yeah. and everybody went, "Yeah." And then he came up to me afterwards and said, "We're definitely doing it. If that's what they want, that's what we want. We're going to do that." And they didn't have to, but they did. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful because we needed each other in that. We absolutely did. It was the most arduous time. But look at what we did. We opened up people don't realise we opened up. Wentworth could start filming again. And then New York, we opened up Ireland, New Zealand. We're very proud of what we did on that. And it's always, and I'm not blowing smoke, I loved working with you, and for us to we came in together. Well, I came into it in your storyline. It's just a joy. And remember, today was on set when we did the Valentine's Day thing with that stunt.
Yeah.
And I got that in one take. That stunt was done in one take. I was so proud of that moment. Yeah.
No, amazing. Well, thank you, Sal.
No worries.
We'll definitely have to have you back because you are kicking so many goals at the moment, and the future is only looking brighter and brighter for you, as it should.
Look, I love you guys. And let's do this again because this is bonkers.
Oh, Sally Ann Upton. She certainly delivered in her interview. We'll certainly have to have her back because I was talking to her after it, and I said, "Don't tell me how this happened," but she just offhandedly mentioned that she has a fire truck named after her. A fire truck. So we certainly have to have her back just for that story alone. But it definitely sounds like there's so many more stories that she has. She's had an incredible career so far, and
so humble as well for someone who's done so much work. She's like we said at the beginning, she's done a blockbuster film that has just come out. Like, she's riding the top of the big waves, and she's still so humble. Oh my God!
And she's the epitome of that person who exemplifies the kind of person someone wants to work with. You know, they're great at what they do, but they're also just great to be around. And that's what everywhere should be, and what everywhere should reward. And Neighbours certainly rewarded her by bringing Vera back and bringing her into a much bigger role on the show, which she certainly deserved, and getting on the intro credits, which is a very big deal. Now, Maddie, I have a question.
Yes.
You move a lot. You well, not a lot, I should say, but you have moved a couple of times. You're moving to different areas, even within Victoria. Being on the show, you were in sort of South Yarra, Port Melbourne areas, which is all sort of one inner Melbourne, and then you moved out to Rye, and then you moved from Rye to the Gold Coast, and then from the Gold Coast to, where were you when you came back? Warrandyte. Which is out of the cities again, and then you've moved to Noosa. All of these areas, you would have had to re-establish yourself. Not only, you got to find your doctor, you got to find your gym or whatever, or your dentist, all those sort of practical things. But then you've also got to.
There are all three things that I don't do. Whoopsies.
Oh dear. We'll get to that in another episode. People can comment below about why Matt should see a dentist and a doctor and anything else that you need to do. But you've also got to establish a new friendship group. And Rye, you knew a couple people in the area. Warrandyte, not really, I'm guessing. The Gold Coast, you had a friend or two in the area. Noosa, did you have anyone already there that you knew as a friend?
No. Oh, we had sort of, loosely. Jess did.
How do you go about finding your new friend groups when you move to a new area? I think people
they're just fans on OnlyFans, and we just reach out, going, if you're
your
in the area,
foot
you want to see his toes up close, hit me up. No, there are, honestly, this is insane. The amount of people who are so like-minded up here is insane. Have we spoken about this?
Kind of briefly.
I don't know if we've spoken about this. I swear to you, we have 3, maybe 4 of our really close friends now bought things off Facebook Marketplace up here, and we met them, and they're like, "Oh, this is my kid. This is my kid. They're the same age. They're the same age. We moved from here. We moved from here." And then straight next minute, we're hanging out. There was another guy who I rocked up to the beach with the 3 kids on my own, and he had 3 kids identical ages on his own, and he says, "Is your wife at work?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "3 kids yourself?" "Yep." Said, "Where'd you come from?" "Victoria." "Oh, me too." "What do you do for a living?" "I'm a carpenter." "Oh, me too." And we just hit it off. We've even got the same bloody car. We've even got the same everything. And so anyway, there's a lot of carbon copies of our families up here. And we've, I don't know. It's just so everyone's so open to it up here. I feel like in Melbourne, people were so cliquey. And once you're in there, it's hard to sort of open up those new cliques to sort of become a friend. But up here, everyone's open. I guess a lot of people have made the move. So
yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, it's ironic then you're saying in Melbourne, but then literally the people you're meeting in Noosa are from Melbourne. But
yeah, that's right. The escapees.
I would say Sydney's far more cliquey than Melbourne is, but then perhaps
for sure.
Well, Noosa. What about the Gold Coast though?
That's good. Different vibe. Completely different vibe. I feel like Gold Coast has like its own culture there.
But how did you find your friends and stuff? Or was that all just through the friends you already had there?
Smile and wave, baby. Smile and wave. Hey. Or a wink. Sometimes you give them a wink. Then they can become friends. No, I don't know, man. It's not like you put out ads for friends. It just sort of happens, doesn't it? You just sort of meet people.
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. I'm trying to discover. You've had to do it a few times.
Do you want to move up? Is that what you're trying to do? And that's your only concern, is making friends?
No, that's not the only concern. There's plenty of things that you've got to factor in. But I think people would find it curious as to, because I think a lot of people out there would be worried about moving somewhere and not having any friends, and in what areas, or how you've gone about finding that new friendship group, because you've had to do it a few times. So I feel like there would be, you would have figured out whether instinctively or not.
I think the most amount of, I think in all of the places in Victoria and stuff, probably made more friends around the city. As soon as we went to like Warrandyte or Rye or even Port Melbourne or whatever, you don't really, I don't know, people just aren't, look, dare I say it, people are friendlier up here. More often will people walk up to you as a random person and say, "Hey, how have you been?" on the streets than in Melbourne. Everyone seems to keep their head down and keep going, with exceptions. But I honestly think that's the reason. Gold Coast and here, people are friendlier in Queensland. Maybe it's the sun. Maybe it's because people are outdoors and you actually get to see more people. I don't know.
Maybe. Or well, I guess also in a smaller area, it's smaller town, you're fresh meat in that sense. And because there's not many new faces or permanent new faces that often. So they're more likely to reach out because they know everyone else already. So there's not much more to find out about them. That's it, I think. What's your joke, Matty?
I haven't seen my neighbour for a while, all right? And then one day I saw him in the garden and I said, hey, where's you been? He said he'd been on a holiday. I said, no, where's your wheelie been? He goes, okay, you got me. I've wheelie been in prison.
See you next midnight.